Hey there, this is a special bonus episode of Dennis Anyone. I started a Patreon recently, and I do some exclusive content on there. I've done about 3 episodes so far, and so I'm going to give you a sneak preview of a couple of those episodes to see if you like it. And if you do, you can sign up for it at patreon.com, search Dennis Anyone. It's $5 a month. I put it out once a week, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I hope you enjoy it. So here are 2 of the first episodes that I've done, and I hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Dennis Anyone, the Patreon project. I'm your announcer, random British AI voice. And now please welcome the host of Dennis Anyone, Dennis Hensley.
Hi there, and welcome to the first ever Dennis Anyone, the Patreon project. And actually, as I was saying that, I realized that was a lie, because I did try some Patreon stuff back a few years ago, but I've come up with a better formula for it now, and I'm excited, and I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to be consistent. And one of the elements that I'm going to have is a fake AI announcer, like you just heard. And that way I can say, oh yeah, I work with AI all the time to people for potential jobs and things. Because guess what, people? I'm still doing stuff and hanging in. So as if you're listening to this, there's a good chance I'm still walking the earth. All right, so we're going to start off now with our very first section, which I teased on the regular Dennis Anyone pod.
And now it's time for So This Happened.
Okay, so this happened. I got a text the other day from Drew Droege, actor, writer extraordinaire, who appears every year on the year-end movie wrap-up episodes with me and film critic Glenn Gaylord. So he texted me this, and it said, "Hey, Dennis, my friend Ash was listening to your podcast that Glenn and I did, and you gave a shout-out to his friend Fayssal. He sent it to him and got this back." Okay, so first of all, Fayssal is Fayssal Bazzi, who is an Australian actor who was in Late Night with the Devil. He played kind of like this psychic or this sort of, I don't know, Egyptian seer person, and I just thought he was really sexy. And apparently, I said so on the podcast, and apparently I also admitted to going on Google Images and picking cute pictures of him to put on the dream board. I put him on my dream board. So that's what Drew's friend Ash sent to Fayssal. He sent him a link to the podcast. And so the screen grab that Drew sent back to me is like a text chat. And oh wow, you can see Fayssal Bazzi's name at the top, like it's literally his chat. And then my podcast logo was on the right, and then Fayssal has a comment. And here's what his comment is. I'm going to read it, and here we go. LOL, 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 4 exclamation points. I've never been on a dream board before. Emoji, crying, laughing, crying emoji. You know that one. Honored and a little flirty. Exclamation point, bed emoji. You guys, dream boards work. I mean, it's just a matter of time before we're married and I'm living in Australia. I'm a little mortified of that. Also because I think no one ever listens to my podcast. I really don't. But they do sometimes, apparently. So, that was my So This Happened moment. So, very exciting. So this happened. All right. And now on to our next section.
And now it's time for the observation deck.
Now, some of you may remember that the observation deck was this deck of cards that I would take to interviews when I would do them in person, and the people would pick a few cards before we started, and then I would ask them at the end of the interview. Well, when I started doing everything on Zoom during the pandemic, it kind of got lost because it was kind of awkward to do it. The cards, whatever. And sometimes I would remember to try something, and most of the times I didn't. So I wanted to bring it back because people liked it. And actually, the observation deck was what led to You Don't Know My Life, the boxed party game and virtual game night experience, which is now like my major income is hosting these things. So this deck of cards and these questions have a long history with me. They were questions that I developed over the years of interviewing people for magazines. I had this list that I Xeroxed with all these questions on it, and I would take one to every interview, and I would kind of pepper a few in to the interview because I found they got good stories out of people from my articles, kind of random stories. So I brought the questions back, and the first person I used them on is a recent podcast guest. His name is David Wichman. He is the author of the book Every Grain of Sand, and his new book, 4 Rooms. And he is a really cool guy. He has worked a long time as a male escort, a sex worker, and he also is a writer and does all of these interesting things. He does part of his job is traveling around the world on these wild adventures, and just he's an interesting guy. And he was happy to be the first person to draw some cards from the Dennis Anyone deck. Check it out. All right, joining me from Palm Springs to take some questions from the observation deck, it's my recent guest, David Wichman. He's the author of The 4 Rooms, an inquiry into sexual freedom and well-being. Inquiry is spelled Queer. I like that. Welcome back, David. Thank you for doing this.
Hello, Dennis.
You've been touring around with your book. It's been fun to see on Instagram. I hope that people are loving it and that you're having a great experience. Thank you for picking some questions from the observation deck and being very brave. So here's one of the first questions you picked. What's the coolest thing that you ever got for free?
This is going to sound so stupid, but it is my favorite cup, and I use it every single day. As a matter of fact, I didn't use it today because it's in the dishwasher, and I'm jonesing for it.
What's special about this cup?
It is a stainless steel tumbler with screw-on lid that has it's like, I don't know, 40 ounces. It has a long stainless steel straw with a rubber cover over it. And I was at a conference. And one of the booths were giving these cups away.
Right.
And I was like, I am getting one of those cups. And I didn't pay any attention to it for the longest time because it was in my, crap bag.
Right. It's like a swaggy thing.
Swag stuff. But the housekeeper, somebody cleaned out the bag, and there was the cup sitting in the cupboard. And I started using this cup, and I tell you, I'm terrified to travel with it because I'm afraid I'm going to leave it someplace. I drink Country Time lemonade.
Country Time lemonade, you kick it old school. I like that.
Country Time. I get my bucket of powder,
right,
and I scoop one scoop into the cup, and I go and I fill it up with water, and I shake it. And so if I want to make a shake, like a nutrition shake, I just put my powder in there, and I put my water, my oat milk or whatever, and then I shake it, and it's a done deal.
All right. The second question that you pulled from the observation deck is, what was your most glamorous night?
Because I got it. I guess it's glamorous. It's really glamorous. I used to have this client who was extremely wealthy, and he was a super, he's a super customer of Gucci.
Right on.
Because he bought all his stuff from Gucci. He bought me all kinds of stuff from Gucci. And because he spent so much money at Gucci, he got invited to Milan for the Gucci Spring Runway Show. It was called the Cruise Collection. They call it the Cruise Collection, whatever that is.
Wow.
And you had to, you had to dress. And
right.
He flew me and himself to Milan on an extended journey, but it was then we had to go to Gucci.
Wow.
To the shoe factory first, which is a different than their manufacturing factory, where they make shoes for Madonna and they make shoes for blah blah blah. They make shoes. They mold your feet into this. They take an exact mold of your feet and they make you a custom pair of shoes. It takes months and months and months to get them, but they also make bags and wallets and all this stuff. And it was a tour.
Right.
And my client ordered all kinds of crazy shit from them. I, to this day, I don't remember ever getting anything from that factory, which was like, you could design your own backpack,
right,
and do all of this stuff. It was insane. So then the next day, they come and they measure you and, for this suit. And, maybe 3 days later, the suit shows up at this fancy hotel.
Wow.
And we went to Florence and all over Italy. We come back and the suit is there. It's this gorgeous Gucci suit.
Wow.
Amazing. A really beautiful suit, tie, vest, the whole 9 yards. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Get picked up by this car, taken to the Gucci Cruise Collection runway show. I'm just like, and out of the car, I know this sounds like crazy, but there are maybe 150, 200 people outside these, what are they called? They're like barriers, right?
Yeah, like the barricades, like the metal barricades.
They're kind of like barricades, but they wouldn't stop me from going.
Right.
But they're there for the people who are coming to the show to walk through. You get out of the car and then you walk through that walkway and you go into the show. And it's not at Gucci. It's at some place that is, I don't know. It's like an art gallery, maybe.
Right. Some kind of really fabulous building.
But it was a building that was basically an empty warehouse type of thing. Downtown Milan, like in the city, in the village. And, we're all there standing around feeling awkward, dressed to the nines. And the president, the guy of Gucci, what was his name back then?
Was it Tom Ford?
No,
it wasn't Tom Ford.
Yeah, right after Tom Ford.
Okay,
it wasn't the guy who just recently stopped, Michelle. Right. It was this other guy, tall, skinny, really handsome man, married guy. I was standing next to him the whole time, and he's like talking away about something to somebody, and it was just super awkward, but it was very glamorous. And my friend, who was my client's salesperson for Gucci in Chicago and New York and all these places, said, "You're just standing there with the president like he's nobody." I don't know who he is.
Right.
Anyway, so the runway show happens. I think it lasted 7 minutes.
Right. The whole thing, it's over in a jiffy.
It's done.
Yeah.
They did the whole collection comes out, it's all menswear. It's just the menswear collection.
Right.
They motion us to come to the back, just me and my client.
Right.
And the entire collection is on mannequins.
Wow.
The one that just came through, and they are like shopping they're like, pay up. I want you to buy stuff.
Right. So you're being pitched to.
It was glamour, and everything was $5,000 or, everything was ridiculous. And, of course my client buys all kinds of crap, and, and I don't mean it like it's crap. It's
right. But they've got money to spend on things like this.
It's so crazy. And it's like, and I still have the suit in my closet.
I bet it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing. And it still fits me. Thank you, Ozempic.
Right. Are you on Ozempic?
No.
I was like, I know. I was like, I didn't think so, but I know.
Do I need Ozempic?
No, but I know I have thin friends that are. So I was asking.
Yeah. No, I don't want to be super skinny, but, and I got a bunch of stuff from there, shoes and, my client got me all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
Cool stuff. But it's like summer. It was like summer cruise wear, spring wear.
Yeah.
That was, I don't have that same kind of taste. I'm very, and so it's during that season, it was very floral, very flowery. So that was my glamorous.
What an adventure!
Event.
You got the whole Gucci experience.
I got the whole Gucci experience because what they want is they want to sell those custom made shoes that are like a gazillion dollars. They want to sell those bags and those backpacks. They want to sell that cruise collection, and they walk you through, and they make you feel like a superstar. And and they completely were wonderful to me and really sweet. Wonderful people, but I wasn't throwing down the American Express, black card. None of that,
But
it was cool.
It was super cool.
Really, it was awkward, but it was also very cool.
Yeah,
that's my most
glamorous night. I love that story.
Yes.
And here is the third question you picked from the observation deck.
Okay.
What's the most trouble you ever gotten in school?
I pulled the fire alarm. Now, it is actually a really funny story. And the only reason I'm telling you this is because it's hilarious.
All right.
So I'm older. I'm 56.
Right.
And I don't know, is that older? I think
it's younger than me.
Young.
You're younger than me.
I don't remember what grade I was in, but I was like third or fourth grade, and we were all standing. You know how you just stand in line for lunch, you stand in line for assembly, you stand in line, and everybody makes fun of me and bullies me, and so I was trying to be cool,
right?
And I'm like, watch this, I'm gonna pull the fire alarm. So I pulled the red lever. I pulled the fire alarm, and right. And the teachers all come out. They rush everybody out into the baseball. There's like a big field. There's a baseball. Everybody out to the field. And behind that field is the exit gate to my house. Right?
Oh, wow.
And I was mortified. I was like, oh, shit, I'm in. Like the whole school, like all 809,000 million children are out in the thing. And the fire department's coming. So I went home.
So you were just like, I'm out of here. I'm just going to go home.
God, I don't want to get in trouble for this. And of course they told on me. Well, I don't think they told on me. What happened was they did roll call.
Right.
And I'm stupid. I'm at home.
Right.
Watching Barney Miller on TV with my dad, my stepdad. Yeah, my stepdad's sitting in the chair, and he's just like, what are you doing home? And I don't remember what lie I told him, but it was some kind of lie.
Right.
And Barney Miller's on the TV. This is how silly and crazy this story is.
Right.
So the school calls and they said, David's missing. The fire alarm was pulled. We think it was him.
Right.
Bring him back to school. We want to paddle him or whatever he's in trouble. So my stepdad just looked at me and goes, you better get back to school. You're in trouble. And I was like, and he was a terror. And so I was already terrified of him.
Right.
So I go back to school and I'm sitting in the principal's office and the principal's like, who pulled the fire alarm? And I go, it was Barney Miller. Well, that's not even the worst. Check this out.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't do it. It was Barney Miller.
Of course it was. That Hal Linden, you can't trust him as far as you can throw him.
There was a kid in my school named Barney Miller.
Oh,
they
no.
Bring him into the office and they go, this Barney Miller? I got in so much trouble for that.
Wow, that's crazy.
But not only did I get it at school, like I got paddled or some kind of craziness.
Yeah.
I had this principal named Mr. Novak. He was like 9 feet tall.
Uh-oh.
And he was ominous. And, but I also got in trouble at home. Like I got fucking ripped a new one at home. So
yeah, that's
isn't that crazy that there was actually a kid named Barney Miller in my school?
And that was the name you pulled out. Did it help your social standing? Did people think you were cool?
No.
Didn't work.
They still hated me. I was still queer. I was still gay.
Yeah.
I was still fag. You know?
Right. There was a hot guy on Barney Miller. I didn't like that show. I thought it was kind of boring. But there was one dude that was kind of hot.
Yeah. It wasn't Mr. Fish.
No, it wasn't Fish. Abe Vigoda, God rest his soul. David, thank you for diving in and sharing some fun stories, playing the observation deck.
Letting me be here.
David has 2 wonderful books you should check out. His memoir, Every Grain of Sand, and his new book, The 4 Rooms. Are you doing any more events coming up?
April 27th, I'm doing Casa Oliver, which is a new men's resort in Palm Springs. They took over the old resort called All Worlds and they refurbished it. And they are letting me do a book signing at their Sunday Fun Days tea dance.
Fun.
Which is clothing optional. And I'm going to be bare ass naked.
Right.
I just want to do a book signing naked.
You've got to.
And then in early May, I'm performing at the Fornication Party in Fort Lauderdale for Fornication. Right on. Ray Dalton's Fornication. And the day before that, an art gallery called Fierce Art Gallery, FAG, is hosting my book signing. And it's going to be sort of like an art gallery showing plus book signing, which is filled with erotica and queer art. And it's going to be freaking amazing. So, and I think that's May 9th or 8th. I don't have it in front of me, but we haven't really decided on the date, but it's that weekend. And right on. It's going to be Fort Lauderdale, unbelievable, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah, people should follow you on Instagram. Instagram is... Follow me on Instagram. What's your Instagram? David's World. David's World. DavidsWorld.me. Okay. At DavidsWorld.me, which is also my website, by the way. Oh, nice. All right, perfect. DavidsWorld.me.
Lots of things going on. David, thank you for doing this. I loved your stories. They were all wonderful, and I hope our paths cross very soon.
Yes, likewise. Have a good one.
All right, thanks, David. Bye-bye.
And now it's time for You Gotta Get On This.
Okay, this section is called You Gotta Get On This, and the AI announcer doesn't know how to emphasize the right word, but it's basically like my recommendations for things that I've discovered or seen or become obsessed with in that current week, movies, books, things like that. And so this week I want to plug something that I watched on Paramount Plus. It's a documentary called Black Box Diaries, and I actually heard about it because Dan Harris, who is one of the happiness gurus that I kind of follow, he sends out a Friday newsletter with his picks for things to watch. So it's from one pick list to another pick list, but it's called Black Box Diaries, and it's basically the story of this journalist in Japan named Shiori Ito. And it's as if it's sort of the Me Too story in Japan, but it's as if, Jodi Kantor and Megan Twohey were actually the people that were molested. Because what's going on here is Shiori is a journalist, and she was raped and assaulted, and she's actually the one breaking the story herself, first through a book and then through this documentary. So she's like a one-woman Me Too in Japan, and the rules there, the laws there are really rough on victims of sexual assault. They're really behind the times. They're more, I guess, more in favor of the perpetrator than most other countries. And so she's coming forward and trying to make a change in that, and trying to get justice, and trying to change the laws, basically. And before she comes out publicly, even her family is like, if you tell this story, you're going to be branded forever as this victim. Like there's a culture of silence, I think probably in every country, but it felt like it was even more intense there. People in her family were like saying, don't come forward. But she shows so much courage in coming forward. There are moments in the movie where she's kind of this funny girl laughing and singing with her friends, and yet she is this icon of strength and integrity. And, at one point she's chasing down a car trying to get this politician who's kind of in the mix in this whole story on the record or on camera, rebuffing her or answering her questions. Like she's just running down the street with a camera crew, like just heroic. And yet she's the one whose story that it happened. She's the one that it happened to. And there are a couple of sequences in this movie where something happens in the case, something unfolds. At one point she's getting news over the phone, and it's just sort of jaw-dropping, and her reaction in the moment is so emotional, and I won't soon forget these sequences in particular and the movie in general. So it was nominated for an Oscar this year for Best Documentary. It lost to No Other Land, which I also saw and loved, and it was maybe my favorite Oscar win of the night this year, because if you see that movie, you're just... it's such a horrible situation, but you admire those two filmmakers and the whole team so much, and what they're doing is so brave and important and happening right now, and they did it, and they can't get distribution. Like, it's all messed up. So Black Box Diaries was nominated alongside No Other Land, and it was just kind of a jaw dropper and very inspiring. Like, what this young woman goes through. And she's kind of glamorous. She's kind of a star. Like, I don't mean to objectify the victim of sexual assault, but she's kind of very compelling and fun to watch on camera when she's sort of being silly and working. And I bet she looked amazing at the Oscars. I'll have to go look at the red carpet pictures, but definitely that is my You Gotta Get On This for this week. Check out Black Box Diaries.
And now it's time for Remember Magazines. They Were a Thing. All
right, this is a section called Remember Magazines, They Were a Thing. And in this section, I'm going to look back at a magazine article I did, maybe because the subject of it is in the news, or there's some relevant reason to do it in the current moment. And for this first installment, sadly, it's somebody that's no longer with us. She recently passed away, Michelle Trachtenberg, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I got to interview her in 2009 for a Canadian magazine called Fashion. I just love that it was called Fashion. And we did it in New York. I remember being there. I was working on the Big Gay Sketch Show as a writer for a few months. And I think this happened while I was there. So the idea that I had a television job and I was going to do a magazine interview. Wow. Gosh. That was so glamorous of me. I made it work somehow, the two things. Anyway, I just remember her being really sweet, and there's just a few things from the article that I want to mention that are kind of interesting or fun or whatever. Show her personality a little bit. First of all, she was in a movie called 17 Again, where Matthew Perry and Zac Efron, it was like a body switch comedy. Does anyone remember this? Big? I forgot that it was a movie, but it was a movie. And I asked her if she could tell her 17-year-old self something, what she would say, because she was 23 at the time. And she said that at 17 she was very flat-chested and depressed about it. So I would tell myself that I would get some good boobs, that they're on their way, and that boys are stupid, men are better. Yeah, okay, fair enough. She also talked about having a boyfriend that wasn't in the business. She seemed happy with that. But she also talked about, like, at the time, because of Gossip Girl and things like that, the paparazzi was a real thing for her. And she talked about how when she was eating in public, she would always make sure to cover her mouth with her hand if she was at a table somewhere, because she didn't want a shot of like food going in her mouth. And she also talked about like being in car chases with her boyfriend, like paparazzi chases, and getting to the end and outrunning them and saying, thank God I survived that. So yeah, there was a lot of scrutiny going along with being in the public eye, and also being on shows like Gossip Girl and Buffy and things like that. So she just talked about also how she often played younger than she was, and that she was looking forward to getting to play more grown-up roles. But my memory of her was that she was sweet and nice and fun, and they did 2 covers of her. So, it was one of those things where it's like 2 covers. Wow, can you imagine a magazine with any cover at all, let alone 2? Oh, man. All right. Remember magazines? They were a thing. So rest in peace, Michelle Trachtenberg. I'm glad I got to spend a little time with you.
And now it's time for Come On Get Happy, musings about the science of happiness.
Okay, one of my goals for the next year or so, apart from surviving, is I would like to lead a class around the science of happiness at the Gay and Lesbian Center, like a once-a-month thing. I've turned in a proposal. They're considering it. They've got a lot of other things ahead of that, and I'm not quite ready yet to do it, but that's something I really want to do. Once a month, 90 minutes. And I've never really taught anything before, and I'd like to try to do that. Anyway, I want to share some of these musings with people because they've helped me in my life. And so I think in this little section of the podcast, I might just talk about some of this stuff and give examples and things like that. And I think one of the moments that I want to start with is I remember in January of 2020, and I want to bring it up because it echoes so much the current moment. I just remember taking stock of my life and looking around and going, okay, I'm not making enough money, or my career's not going great. I mean, I was getting by, but I was probably spending more than I made every month and trying to make things happen. And, I was hustling and it wasn't like I wasn't killing it professionally, just in terms of, bottom line. Creatively, there was great stuff going on, but in terms of that. So I was like, that wasn't going well. I wasn't in a romantic relationship. There wasn't much going on in that area. So I'm not doing great professionally or romantically, and Trump is in the White House. I was sort of taking stock and looking around. And then I said to myself, what if all of those things are true and I could be happy anyway? And that became my mission. I was going to try to be happy anyway, in spite of whatever the shit is. And so I started doing different things, and I'll talk about them coming up in different episodes. But that was the impetus of a more concentrated look at this. What would it look like? It feels like the ultimate life hack if you can base your happiness not on the stuff that happens. And I found some tools along the way that have helped me do that, and now I'm taking stock again, and all of those things are not only true, they're way more true. And so the idea of being happy anyway, it's a lot more challenging now. I don't watch the news. I let go of my New York Times subscription just because of money, but also I just couldn't bear it. So being happy anyway, we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to share some things that help me, and maybe they might resonate with you as well. So that's what this chunk of the Patreon project will be about. All right, so that was the first episode of the Dennis Anyone Patreon project. So I feel like I like it. I enjoy it. I like the different buckets of things that we're doing. I also can't afford in-person therapy right now, so I may turn this into a therapy session at some point. That could be part of it. I could make that one of the little sections. If you signed up for my Patreon and are doing this, I really appreciate it. We're gonna have a fun journey together, and I hope you enjoy it, and I think I will definitely enjoy it. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on this pod or the original Dennis Anyone, original recipe, or classic Coca-Cola Dennis Anyone. All right, bye.
Welcome to Dennis Anyone, the Patreon project. I'm your announcer, random AI middle-aged Australian male. And now please welcome the host of Dennis Anyone, Dennis Hensley.
Welcome to Dennis Anyone, the Patreon project. This is my second Patreon episode, and so far I'm really enjoying this process, and I hope you are too. So let's get right into it.
And now it's time for So This Happened.
Okay, so this happened. As I mentioned in the main pod, I had a teeth cleaning scheduled, and I thought about canceling it, and, because money's tight right now, but I kept the appointment, and I'm glad I did, because I learned that my dental hygienist has clients that are on the White Lotus, because I mentioned the White Lotus. It was a day after the finale. I said, have you watched it? And she goes, I need to watch, I only watched the first episode of the third season. I need to watch the whole thing. She goes, because I have 3 clients on it. And I was like, okay, well, who are your clients? And it turns out her clients are Leslie Bibb, Sam Rockwell, Leslie's husband, and Walton Goggins, and she loves all of them. And she says they're all super nice. And I said, well, come September, you're going to be seeing some smiles from them. So you may be doing some cleaning and stuff, because they're going to be in the Emmy conversation, as it were. And she was excited for them. She said they're all really nice, and I wasn't surprised to hear that, because in the magazine section of this very episode, I'm going to talk about an interview I did, I believe it was in the late 90s or maybe 2000, with Leslie Bibb when she was on the TV show Popular. So stick around for that. Another thing that happened was I went to Dancing with the Stars live. It was at the Kodak Theater, which is now the Dolby Theater, which is where they have the Oscars. And I'm a big fan of Dancing with the Stars. I like the colors and the people in the dancing. I realized not long ago that I had turned into my mother, because when I was a kid, she used to like to watch Lawrence Welk with the bubbles and Bobby and Sissy and the music and everything. And I just thought it was so lame and boring. And I was like, I'd always roll my eyes and make fun of it and stuff. And now I realize that Dancing with the Stars is my Lawrence Welk. It's that comforting thing with the pretty music and the people and the colors and the spectacle. Although Dancing with the Stars is a lot sexier than Lawrence Welk. There's lots of bumping and grinding. Gleb often takes his shirt off. So it was at the Dolby Theater. It was a really well-produced show, and the place was packed. So 2 sold-out nights at the Dolby of Dancing with the Stars people. There were a couple of celebrities on the tour with the pros. Stephen Pederask, I can't remember his last name. He was the pommel horse guy. He was actually one of the MCs, along with Emma Slater, one of the pros, who is actually a really good host. She reminded me of all the British women that I worked with on cruise ships who were like cruise directors. She has that accent, and she's good at dealing with the punters, as we say. So she was the co-host with Stephen the Pommel Horse guy, and we had Chandler from The Bachelorette was one of the celebrities, and the other one was Alona Mahar, the rugby player, who my friend Rebecca loves, and Rebecca was the one that got the tickets, so I'm very grateful for that. And I had not forgotten, I knew this was coming up, but I hadn't really gotten excited about, I'm going to see the Dancing with the Stars people. And then it snuck up on us, and there we were, just reeling in the spectacle. They had like a disco number, they had like a Born to Hand Jive number. I loved it. It was really beautifully produced and mounted. They would do shticky comedy bits that I thought played pretty well. Among the dancers in the troupe of dancers on the Dancing with the Stars tour is Ezra Sosa. And I've known Ezra as a fan, at least. I've never met him since he was on So You Think You Can Dance a few years ago. But back then, he was not out, I don't think. And that show, sometimes, especially Nigel, could be a little homophobic in some of his comments. Like, he was always sort of implying that certain people need to butch it up or whatever. Anyway, I think that Ezra has since been out loud and proud, and he's very sassy in this show. Like, he does like a kind of voguing sleigh number kind of vibe. And I felt bad for him because his first season as a pro, which was the past season, he was with Anna Delvey, who was a criminal. She had some scandal that they did a Netflix show about or whatever. Anyway, she danced in an ankle bracelet. And at the end, when she got eliminated first, the host was like, well, what will you take away from this experience? And she's like, nothing. And that was it. And it just sat there. So they made fun of that in the show, which was really fun. I was just super into it. And they did Born to Hand Jive, which was super energetic and fun. And, when you love a show, you're always worried that it's going to get canceled or like that's the end of it or there's no ratings or whatever. But seeing all those people there for the tour, super excited. It was very exciting. I was sitting next to a couple. And I asked the woman if she'd been here to the tour before. She goes, I never miss it. I go every time. And I said, well, who would your partner be if you were going to be on Dancing with the Stars? And she's sitting with her husband, who's very patient to go to these things. And she goes, oh, Val. And she goes, what about you? And I'm like, Val, although that's not true. I just wanted to make a gay joke and get, be funny that way. But, there's lots of people I think I would like to be partnered with way back to Katarina. Of course, Julianne Hough. There was I had a Cheryl Burke phase. And then also the boys, I feel like Gleb's never really gotten his moment to go all the way, so to speak. But, he's so hot. He's almost too hot to handle. Anyway, I loved it. It was great. And it was at the Dolby Theater. So that was a thing that happened. Another thing that happens, I saw Jane Eyre last night at a Noise in Theater here in Los Angeles. It's in Pasadena. I've been going there since the 90s. And Jane Eyre is a novel, and somebody did a stage adaptation of it. And it feels kind of like a novel. Jane Eyre is actually narrating part of it, like straight to the audience. But I had never read that book or seen that movie. Of course, I'd heard of it. It's a classic. But I understand why it's endured, because the character of Jane Eyre, like, she doesn't come from nothing. She doesn't have anything. And she, there's abuse in her background, and she's thrown into these situations, but she has a sense of self, and she has a sense of integrity, and that sort of sees her through these different situations. And the production was beautiful and elegant, and they always do a good job with the sets and the lights and the music and everything over there. So it was very cool. There's an actress in it that plays like a housekeeper, and her name is Deborah Strang. And I first saw her in the 90s at like a Noise Within's former location, which is in Glendale at this old Rotary building. You would go up the stairs, and it was kind of an old kind of factory type building, but tall, and anyway, it was cool. And I saw her in The Little Foxes. She was Regina, and I was like, I loved her, but I've been seeing her in shows ever since for 30 years. And I got to see her once. I went to the box office, and she was working there, and I got to tell her that I've always loved her work. And I was sort of thinking like, wow, she has made this career, this life acting at this theater. I'm sure she has TV and stuff too, but just like that's her creative home, and she plays all the great roles and does the box office sometimes. And I was like, that's really cool. That's a very cool life. The next show they're going to do is A Man of No Importance, and I'm very excited to see that show, which reminds me, I have an interview coming up with somebody in a show locally that I'm excited to talk to, but I've seen them on Scruff. They're a performer, and I've seen them on Scruff. They're in my neighborhood. They are in a relationship, but they play. And there's something about their profile, when you read down there, like some of the specifics, and you're like, wow, okay, that's a factoid that jumps out. in this case, the person shoots big loads and they go far. So size and distance with loads. And so I'm going to be doing an interview with a person, and I'm going to be talking about their work and what it means to be an artist and a creative person. And I'm also going to be thinking big loads go far. So that's going to really test my mettle as a journalist. But I'm not going to say who it is unless you go to my Venmo. In that case, I might. In that case, I might do it. I might say it. But Jane Eyre was cool. The other thing I did is I went to see High Art. They had a screening of High Art, the late 90s lesbian movie with, who's in it? Ali Sheedy and Radha Mitchell. It's directed and written by a woman named Lisa Cholodenko. It was her first movie. She's done other things since then, like The Kids Are All Right. She was there for a Q&A. And, I remember the movie kind of from the 90s, but I don't remember what happens in it. Folks, lots of heroin snorting, hence the term high art. But Ali Sheedy's in it. She plays a photographer who's also uses heroin. And what I loved about it is it was the 90s of it, the late 90s of it. Because between that and The Good Girl with Jennifer Aniston, which I think I talked about before on one of these podcasts, both of them are workplaces that wouldn't exist now. Jennifer Aniston worked in like a general store. Maybe it was a franchise, but it was just every time they would cut to people in that store, they would be sitting around not working. It was a huge staff of people that just got to sit there and chomp their gum. That's not how it works now. That store would be closed. They would be Amazon drivers or they would be dead. And then with this one, it was a glamorous photography magazine. And Ali Sheedy was a photographer and Radha Mitchell was an assistant at the magazine who starts a relationship with Ali Sheedy because they're neighbors and ends up pitching her new work to the magazine. And just magazines in general, just the idea that there's kind of a cool artsy photography magazine with big offices in Manhattan and somehow the bills get paid. Yeah, I love 90s movies for the fantasia of workplaces that don't exist anymore. But it was fun. Always fun to go to Vidiots and see a movie and a little Q&A. So that was cool. Let me see what else happened. I'll just tell you this. I just had a job interview like a half hour ago over Zoom. It's a job involving a newsletter. I will tell you more about it if I get it. But I would really like it. It's a temp job, 6 months as of now. It would last for 6 months, but I think it would be amazing. And boy, as you can tell from my recent episodes, I could use something like that to build a life around, have that basis, and then do my other stuff like this on the side. So fingers crossed that maybe I will get it. It was a Zoom interview, and when you're the one being interviewed, there's a few moments where you leave your body and you're like, what the fuck are you saying? Like you're just kind of prattling on. And anyway, I don't know. I think I did okay. I did do this though. It was wrapping up and I was like, oh, can I show you something? I said, I do my own newsletter. And I was allowed to share my screen and I showed my newsletter, my Constant Contact newsletter, which I've been doing for years. Originally, I was just sending out an email that kind of looked, I don't know, it was janky. It was not cute. But I always had to promote Mismatch Game and things like that. There were always things that I was trying to get people to come to. And this guy I remember in a coffee shop, his name is Mike Manarino. He used to live in LA. He's like, you should do Constant Contact. And he introduced me to it, and you have to subscribe. And it ain't cheap, but it helps you do all the newslettering that you want to do. So I showed the job interviewer my that I do my newsletters, and I felt good that I was like I didn't like I had an impulse to do something and I did it. I followed that impulse. So we will see. He did say he liked my resume, which is nice because I designed it myself on Canva and it's kind of fun. It's not super corporate and cool. I used the cartoon that I had done for the Mismatch Game on part of it, and I have like pictures of the game, You Don't Know My Life and stuff. Anyway, so I Canva'd the shit out of it basically, and he said he liked it, so that was cool. So fingers crossed. Hopefully they will hire me. That would be really, really sweet. All right, that's enough for This Happened. Let's get to the next section.
And now it's time for the observation deck.
I'm very happy to say that my guest this week, Paul Rudnick, was happy to answer a couple of observation deck questions. So we're going to have one this week and one next. Here's his first observation deck question. When was the first time you saw a dirty magazine or a video?
Well, my brother, I have an older brother,
right,
who had porn paperbacks that I read them when I was so little that I didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
And they were always called, the Lustful Turk, the beauties of wherever.
Right.
And there was one specific sex section where a bold buccaneer unveiled his lusty sword,
right,
and plunged it into her dark, moist cavern.
Right.
And I was so young that I thought he was actually plunging a sword into her and killing her. And only years later I read it and I thought, I get what was going on. Now I understand. Yeah. So but I love that I was that innocent is the polite word for it. I was that dumb that I really didn't get metaphor. I certainly didn't get heterosexual sex.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a time when also the only porn that was available was, like in Playboy magazine, there'd be a movie that had partial male nudity.
Yeah, and there would always be a star over the insertion part, so you couldn't see the full, but there would be a couple dudes there, and that would be enough.
Yep. There would always be like, the Hercules shot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my introduction to human
I bet
sexuality.
The covers of those books were wonderful. We could, like, pop art. I love that story, and I love just picturing those covers. I had older brothers, so that was my first entry to porn, and they would have magazines sometimes hidden in different places, and I became very good at finding them and sneaking them around. I would go, my brother had this, we called it the den, but it was a bedroom that was, you entered from outside of our house. This was my older brother. And so I would go in there when he was not there, and I would find his porn, and then I would sneak them in my tube sock with pants on back to my room, and then, enjoy them and then return them. And there was a period while doing this that he had a deck of cards, a dirty deck of cards. And I remember looking at the dirty deck of cards, and every card was a different picture. And one of the cards had a woman's ass on it with a dildo placed near it, like it was going to go inside. And because of that card, there was a period of time, maybe a couple of months, where I actually thought babies might come out the butt. I think that card threw off my sex education beliefs. Well, not that we had any, because nobody ever talked about anything like that. But yeah, there was a playing card, and I was like, oh, it's the butt. Turns out I was wrong about that, at least in terms of procreation, but right about it in terms of what I liked. So there's that.
And now it's time for You Gotta Get On This, Dennis's pop culture picks of the week.
The other thing I wanted to share with you that I'm kind of obsessed with is I went to see A Nice Indian Boy in the theater. It's the movie that I had the director of, Roshan Sethi, on a few weeks ago, and I wanted to see his movie in the theater just to support it. So my friend Danny and I went on the first matinee because it's the cheapest. And there were a handful of people in the theater, but people loved it. Everyone was visibly moved. Of course, I was visibly moved because that's basically my new album, Dennis, Visibly Moved. But anyway, afterwards we talked to some of the other people in the audience. There was this older, straight woman and a friend of hers, they were probably in their 70s, and they were just gushing about it. And they were like, it's so good. It really does make you feel really good, and it's funny. The lead actor, Karen, is so funny, and knowing that he improvised a lot of his lines was great. So anyway, if you have a chance, go see it in a theater. It's really winning. And the other thing I wanted to say for my picks of the week, I just thought of some other stuff about White Lotus that I wanted to acknowledge. I loved Patrick Schwarzenegger in it. I thought his journey, his arc from like total douchebag to like questioning what he valued to realizing he's kind of empty, and near the end, like it kind of broke your heart a little bit. There's this amazing shot where Chelsea and Rick are reunited on the beach and they're hugging, and Saxon, Patrick Schwarzenegger's character, is looking on from down the beach, and he's looking at them like, I'm never going to know anything like that. I'm not that person. I'm not. I don't have that in me. I don't have a soul like Chelsea had accused him of, and it's heartbreaking. He played that so beautifully. Like in season 2, Megan Fahey had that close up on the beach of her face where it just tells this entire story, and you're just kind of in awe of the face work, and that's what this one was for me for this season. So can't wait for more White Lotus. So yeah, loved it.
And now it's time for Remember Magazines. They were a thing.
All right, this is the part of Dennis Anyone, the Patreon project, where I look back on some of my magazine articles. So that's how I started out. In the 90s, I caught a break and got to write for Movie Line magazine, and that led to more articles, and it was great. It was a great run. I did it at the right time, and I'm so grateful I got to do it. So thinking about White Lotus, Leslie Bibb is wonderful on that show. She's one of the 3 friends, the blonde blob, I think Ryan White was quoted as saying. And I got to interview her around 2000. It was tied to the show Popular, which was on the WB. It was, I think, Ryan Murphy's first big show as a creator. She played kind of like a girl named Brooke McQueen, and I got to interview her. So it was for Teen Movie Line, and I remember magazines were so successful in the late 90s. Things were going so well that Movie Line was like, let's do a teen version. Like, I remember my editor, Heidi, sitting across a restaurant table from me, and she's just acting like the money's flying around. She's like, we're going to do a teen version. And I was one of the younger writers writing for Movie Line at that time, so I think they felt comfortable having me interview these young people, because I was kind of a teenage girl at heart. So here's my interview with Leslie Bibb in Teen Movie Line. I'm just going to read a little bit of the lead, because the lead is where you set the scene, and I'm kind of proud of it. I read it and I was like, that's fun, that's quirky, that's cool, and you still got it. Even though, can you say you still got it after you still had it? Anyway, I also learned that lead, when talking about a magazine or newspaper article, is spelled L-E-D-E. I learned that recently. I always thought it was L-E-A-D because it's the first part of the show. All right, I am going to read the lead because I think it's cute. Okay. Leslie Bibb has just grabbed the pen out of my hand, and now she's jamming it into my forehead. It's not that the North Dakota-born, Virginia-raised beauty, notice how I get those things in there, who plays reluctant trendsetter Brooke McQueen on the WB's Popular, is offended at my questioning. She made her film debut in Howard Stern's Private Parts, after all. She simply wants to show me how she creates her trademark Brooke McQueen crisscross hair part. I made it all about the hair part. See? Cute. What you do, she says, taking on the tone of a foxy Martha Stewart, is take the end of the comb, then go up and peel your hair off of it. The fact that I have about as much hair to work with as Bruce Willis doesn't seem to bother her one bit. Now you go back like this and then split it, she says, shoving the pen further up my scalp. There, she chirps happily. You have a perfect crisscross. Leslie Bibb gave me a perfect crisscross, you guys. She did. I forgot about that until this moment. So yay for the perfect crisscross, and you guys, Leslie Bibb did the comb thing on my head. So I read through the article, and I'm going to share with you a couple of things that I thought were cool. Or interesting, given, her White Lotus moment. This is an interesting thing I did not know. In one episode of Popular, Brooke dyes her hair brown. How did you feel about that? And she said, I'm a natural brunette, so I was ready to go back. You guys, she's a natural brunette. She's part of the blonde bob. Leslie Bibb is a natural brunette. I broke that story 30 years ago? How many? I don't know how many years ago. Okay. I'm a natural. I'm ready to go back. I feel very strange and unattractive as a blonde. I'd give anything to go back. I'm a brunette. That's who I am inside. You guys, she's a brunette inside. Leslie Bibb. She's also very nice to her dental hygienist, and we share a dental hygienist. And I think that's really cool. Yeah, you could tell Gita really loves her. And there's one other part of the article that I found kind of interesting, and I had forgotten about this, and I think it's very interesting. So I'm reading this. Here we go. This is my question. When you were 3, your father died in a workplace accident and you were raised by your mother. Did growing up without a dad make you tougher? I asked. tough's not the right word because Southerners don't really like toughness, but there's definitely a thick skin that develops, coupled with a veneer of Southern hospitality. My mom was like a cat on a hot tin roof. Her life has never been candy-coated or easy. She lost her husband when she was 37 years old with 4 kids under 17. The strength that woman has. And then I asked her, what valuable thing your mother taught you? And Leslie said that you can do whatever you want and not to take no for an answer just because you're a woman. When I was 8, we lived in a country town and I wanted to play baseball because all my guy friends were. My mom took me to the Little League meeting and they said she can't play, she's a girl. And my mother said, I'll sue you if you don't let her play baseball. I played baseball the whole season. I even learned to spit just like a boy. So I think that's interesting that she lost her father so early. And that her mother was such a strong role model. I also love the Little League story, so maybe she's legit about the tomboy thing. It's not a actress cliche. So anyway, and the other thing that I mentioned in the main podcast is Leslie Bibb sent me a thank you note after the article came out. And I don't know, it's not expected. It rarely happened, probably like 5 times in my whole career. But it was nice. I remembered it. It made me feel good. And so yeah, I'm Team Bibb all the way. Even if she did vote for Trump. On White Lotus, I mean.
And now it's time for Someone Get Happy. Musings about the science of happiness.
Okay, for this section of the podcast, I thought I would share with you my very first exposure to the idea of positive psychology, that it was a thing, that it was a field. It was probably around 2015. I had been on the fashion police strike had happened a couple years earlier. I had really struggled and floundered and was dealing with health issues and not landing anywhere. And it was a tough time. But I remember going to the Writers Guild. They had a special talk by a well-known film producer. Her name is Lindsay Doran. She worked at a studio for a long time, and she's widely thought of as like a really great like kind of story whisperer. I know she works with Craig Mazin a lot, who created The Last of Us. And so she was giving a talk, and it was kind of this buzzed about talk that I think she had done in other places before. And the basic, I think the title of it was something like Saving the World versus Kissing the Girl. And the idea was like, what are the themes in movies? Why do people really like the movies that they like? What is it that audiences go to the movies for? And in the opening few minutes of her speech, she talked about being invited to speak at a convention of the Society of Positive Psychology. I forget what it's called, but it's all the people that are into positive psychology, all the professionals. So, and it's led by a man named Martin Seligman. So she talked about him, and she talked about being invited to speak there. And she mentioned a book of Martin Seligman's, and I believe the book she mentioned was Learned Optimism. That was definitely the first book of his that I read, and I learned about it from her talk. But basically, in this book, Martin talks about the 5 things that he thinks make life worth living, basically. And the idea is if you could have more of them in your life, you'll probably be happier. And they are positive relationships, positive emotions, engagement, positive accomplishments, and meaning. And those things kind of hooked me a little bit, and I ended up ordering his book after that and reading it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next one, how I got into the book. But the speech from Lindsay Doran, I thought maybe it's online somewhere. So I went on YouTube, and sure enough, it's on YouTube. Because I remember taking notes and like, oh, this is so good, and wanting to share it with people. So it is on YouTube. It's a TED Talk from 2012. Lindsay Doran, Doran, Saving the World versus Kissing the Girl. It's really interesting. And she was sort of making the point with Martin, or exploring the idea that maybe it's those same 5 things that make movies worth watching. Maybe the things that make life worth living are the things that make movies worth watching. And she talked about all of these movies that are beloved, like Dirty Dancing and Rocky and The King's Speech, movies that are like feel-good, rousing, we love them movies. And she sort of pointed out that in our minds, we think they end with the character in a moment of triumph. Like they won. Jennifer Grey does the big leap in Dirty Dancing. We think that's the climax of the movie. or the ending of the movie. When in reality, when you go back, that's not. There's a scene that comes after that is about the relationship in all of those movies. In Rocky, it's with Adrian. In the King's Speech, they talk about the friendship between the king and the speech therapist. So her point is that it's about the relationships. It's not about the victory. And in fact, in Rocky, he doesn't even win the fight. I think we all think in the first Rocky he won the fight. He doesn't. But he overcomes something, and he's there with Adrian, and they love each other. So I love the idea of bringing the ideas that make life worth living and looking at them through the lens of movies and seeing what movies work on us. And I think if you're writing them or making them, knowing that it's more about the relationships than it is about the accomplishments. It's more about kissing the girl than it is about saving the world. And that was my first little gateway into this world of there are people that study these ideas around happiness and what are the people that say that they're happy? What are they doing? What do they value? What are their practices? What are those things? And one of the 5, like I mentioned before, is engagement. And after I read this book, I thought a lot about engagement because there are things that I do that I find very engaging, like this podcast, for example. I'm very alive when I'm doing it. I love the conversations I get to have. It's very engaging. I love doing the artwork. I'm into it. And it doesn't, it hasn't made me rich or famous or anything. It's just been the thing that it is. But after reading that book and sort of thinking about these ideas, I've internalized the idea that engagement in and of itself is a win. So if I'm doing something and I'm into it, that's enough. That's a win. It was a win. So I'm less concerned about the results and more about I was into it. I remember not long after this, I had an opportunity to submit questions to be a possible writer on the new Match Game with Alec Baldwin. And I remember thinking, I have the Mismatch Game already for 15 years at that point, or 10 years. So I was very this job, nobody's written more of these questions than I have, right? And I was like, do I lean into my experience, or is that going to turn them off? Or what if I put so much? And then I realized, you know what? Put everything into it. Give it your best. Be engaged with it. Really lean into that submission. And I did. I was like, I'm going to give this. I'm going to own my expertise. I'm going to own the fact that I've been doing this. I'm going to really put my best foot forward. I'm not going to try to protect myself because if I don't try that hard and I don't get it, I won't feel as bad. I think that's bullshit. And so I put everything into it and I put my best foot forward and I did not get it. But you know what? I was engaged. I did, the engagement was the win. And that was the time when I had to tell myself, you know what? It wasn't wasted effort that you tried really hard. I will say there was one moment afterwards where a guy that I know, a friend of mine, did get the job. He's got more experience with game shows and stuff. And it wasn't the same job that I was up for. It was sort of a different one. He did get the job. And then he emailed me and he asked me, he goes, hey, can I have some of your Mismatch Game questions? Because I don't know anything about pop culture. And I was like, oh, fuck. So here I was, all sunny and positive, and I'm giving this everything, and then that's the result. I don't get the gig, and my friend gets the gig, and he wants my work because he doesn't know what he's doing with pop culture. You know what? And you know what? I wrote him back and I said, you know what? Your email really hurt my feelings, and here's why. Because I tried really hard and all that, but I understand, and I know it's not the same job that I was up for, and here's some questions. But yeah, it was. Man, I think of those little steps of it took a lot for me to say it hurt my feelings, to not just swallow it and give him the questions, to stand up for myself. That whole period of time was about that. The strike happened because I stood up for myself for the first time in a real way, and everything blew up, and it couldn't have gone worse, frankly, and now I stand up for myself more. That's an interesting irony. So anyway, go to YouTube and look for the TED Talk with Lindsay Doran, Doran. It's called Saving the World versus Kissing the Girl. And it just the ideas in it are really interesting. If you like movies, if you like thinking about psychology and what makes people tick and what makes people love the things that they love, it's a wonderful It's a wonderful talk, and I'm glad that it existed, because I remember after it was over going, oh, I want to share this with everybody. And now I get to, all these years later. And that was the beginning of me being interested in the topic of positive psychology. All right, I want to end this episode now, and I was thinking, what can I do to do the ending? And I have this idea, so I'm going to try it with you guys. You guys, I'm going to sing the ending from Donnie and Marie with the AI announcer voice. Okay, here we go. It's like a duet. May tomorrow be a perfect day.
May you find love and laughter along the way.
May God keep you in his tender care.
Till he brings us together again.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
All right, that's it. We'll catch you next time. Thank you for listening to Dennis Anyone, the Patreon Project. All right, thank you for checking out some early episodes of Dennis Anyone, the Patreon Project. That's what it is. It's about at least 30 minutes of new content every week. You get the vibe, you get the feel. I'm having fun doing it and would love your support. So go to patreon.com, search Dennis Anyone, and subscribe for $5 a month. And all of that kind of stuff can be yours. All right, thanks.